Morning, Luna. Morning, Luke. How are we doing this morning? As I'm sitting here waiting for a smoothing compound to dry because I'm at work, but it's cold here in sunny Essex. Morning, Graham. I thought I would say about how I managed to start Morning Martin. How I managed to start playing Dungeons and Dragons. How did I get into it in the first place? Morning, George. Morning, MKZ. Morning, 3D Creation. How are we doing? Yeah, I, like so many people, and this is a classic, probably a bit of a cliched story. However, I started to play. I've always wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons. I always wanted to play, and I always was interested in it. Morning, Millie. How are we doing? I was always interested in it. Morning, Josh. I've always been interested in the game, but I never knew how to get into it. I never knew how to start playing it. I didn't know how to go about it. Morning, Bazza. I didn't know how to get into it. I didn't know. Hey, Hartman Paints. Liam, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. So I had some friends of mine who were like-minded, and I used to play online with them on the PlayStation, that sort of thing. And then in 2020, there was a thing called COVID, if you remember that, which was, now thinking back, a very odd time of the in the world. But they were essentially, we all got put at home, stuck at home, like everyone else was. And all that sort of thing. And I was chatting to my mate, and he said, "Look, we need to sort of do something together." And we all jumped on Teams. And morning, Brent. We all jumped on Teams or Discord or something like that, and said, "Look, why don't we try this Dungeons and Dragons?" Now, obviously, I had a lot of time on my hands, as a lot of people had a lot of time on their hands, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, sorry, let's give it a go. And they'd already started playing a campaign. They'd already started playing into the Lost Mines of Phandelver, the Phandalin campaign. They'd already started it, and I'm not going to try and sort of spoil it for anyone, but how they were sort of part of the way through actually to a really cool point in that starter campaign. If you've played it, it will be the time when you go to Thunder Tree, if that means anything to you. That's when I joined in without any sort of inkling of how to play the game or what it was really about or anything like that. But I thought, you know what, sod it, I'll just jump on. So I downloaded the app we all use for it. I created a character. I created a rogue by the name of Launchpad, who was he was a gnome, an Underdark gnome. And I chose a rogue because I like the idea of a rogue. Again, not fully understanding, or say fully understanding, not at all understanding what the idea of a rogue was, how he was meant to use them. And I was Bill, my DM at the time, he said, like, basically you're going to be morning, Josh. Basically, you're going to be stuck in a cage above some treasure that this particular creature has hoarded. And when we're gonna go and meet this creature, and hopefully the party's going to bust you out, and then you can carry on and just sort of join in. So my first action in all of Dungeons and Dragons, the first thing I ever did, my friend chucked a javelin at the cage, and it broke the door on the cage. It broke the lock on the cage, I should say, and allowing me to escape. So when it come to right, Launchpad, it's your turn. We're in initiative, and the first thing I did was drop down out of the cage and into the gold and hide. So the very, very first thing I ever did in Dungeons and Dragons for my character was hide, and then I waited in the gold until not really knowing what to do. The only thing is, anyone that's played online, will be able to tell. Morning, Waddy. Anyone that's played online will be able to tell you that the pacing of the game can be quite sort of difficult. Morning, Corey. And we were all sitting there via all online, all by morning, Leah. Lines in, right, Dave, how we doing? Yeah, so it's difficult to get the timing of it right. So I would sit there and I was hiding in the goal. Then it was like the wizard's turn or however, I can't remember the exact ins and outs of it. But I remember waiting about, it might have been about 20 to 25 minutes of actual time before it got round to my turn again. And I wasn't sure what to do. Morning, Gary. Morning, Rycom. Morning, Jessica. I wasn't quite sure exactly what to do, so I just hid in the gold, and it was like, right, launch pad, it's your turn again. So I was like, okay, fantastic. What do I do? I don't know what to do. And bearing in mind we were fighting this particular creature, it has a challenge rating of 8, and it's green, to give you some idea of what that was. It tends to fly as well, so again, no spoilers, but you know what we were up against. And yeah, and it was sort of good, and I didn't really understand what I was doing, and I didn't understand the concept of that I could do whatever I wanted to do. And it's a weird thing when you're sort of put on the spot like that. It was right, launchpad, what do you want to do? And it's like, well, I don't really know what I wanted to. I don't really know what I want to do. I don't really understand what I'm supposed to do or what's the best thing to do. And they were like, well, you can do whatever you want to do, and that was a real odd concept for me in terms of, you know, unlike a computer game or, you know, any other sort of board game or anything like that, where it was like, what do you want to do? And it's like, well, I kind of want to attack the thing, but, you know, it's probably not a good idea considering I'm a very squishy. I thought I was only like level 3 or something at the time, level 4 at top. So I didn't even, I think I just got my sneak attack. Again, I didn't understand how that worked. I had a dagger. And what eventually happened is I come out of hiding, out of the gold, and then I was just trying to desperately get back to my friends who were standing a bit further away. So I was desperately trying to get back to them. So I learned about dash, the how to take the dash action. I've got cunning actions and all this. Again, didn't understand how to play a rogue whatsoever. I just sort of picked it, read through it, thought, yeah, I understand that. I didn't understand that at all. Anyway, got back to my friends, and then it was his turn. It was my turn, and I said, right, so come on, Launchpad, what do you want to do? What is it you want to do? I said, well, could he pick me up and throw me like an American football onto the back of the dragon? Let's say it now, onto the back of the dragon, and then I can try and hold on and like stab it in its head. My DM Bill loved the idea, and everyone else was sort of laughing because of how, you know, stupid that is. And sure enough, I think I was picked up by Demonix, and he picked up a little launch pad there, the launch pad, the gnome, and he threw him, onto the back of the dragon, which I landed. Dexterity saving throw, succeeded. I was now on the back of a dragon, not really knowing what to do now, so I tried to attack it. I think I missed. I think I did miss. I rolled my attack and rolled very poorly and didn't. Well, I say miss. That's another thing with AC. Side note, with AC armor class, now when you roll and you don't roll high enough, I don't like to say miss. I like to say your attack, it doesn't penetrate the armor. It doesn't get through the natural armor or the shield or something like that. Not that you miss, because again, in this scenario, I was riding on the back of a dragon, a good sort of 60 feet up in the air. There's Mark. Morning, Mark. Yeah, I was sort of a good 60 feet up in the air. Morning, Kristen. And I was on the back of the dragon, and I rolled for attack, and then I missed. I didn't miss. What are you looking at the back of my van for? Sorry. I didn't miss. I attacked. It didn't penetrate the armor, so I was now on the back of a dragon. I failed my attack and was now up here. Then the dragon started to shake a little bit. I fell, took some damage, and you know, but it was a good time had by all. We continued to play this campaign for a number of months. However, like the absolute cliche of all of Dungeons and Dragons, anyone that plays the game, scheduling was the problem. Now, when it was during that time when we was all furloughed and all off work, it wasn't so bad, because it was literally just a 8 o'clock at night text. Do you guys want to play D&D again? Yeah, great. We'll play D&D again. Solid. We'll go on to, we all jumped online and we all played. As soon as things started to return to normal, and people going back to work and all that sort of thing, and we were coming out the woods, as it were. Scheduling became more and more difficult, and when we was online, it was, you know, old mate nets, mate nets misbehaving. You know, I've had a power cut and all this sort of thing, so it became more and more difficult. We did get through it. We got through the campaign, but it took such a long time that it was difficult to get any sense of consistency to it. It was difficult to get any sense of sort of what's going on, and you sort of forget what you're trying to do, and what who the people are, who the NPCs are, what the mission is. You're forgetting your friends' names and all that sort of thing. So it was, it worked, but it was really inconsistent and difficult to get into. Now, once that campaign was done, again, Bill, my DM, was sort of, he was pleased with how he sort of finished it, and he did a great job. It was all, again, all online, very, very difficult, and you're waiting for your turn, and role play was quite difficult because you really had to all speak one at a time, and then there'd be a delay on the speech and all that sort of thing. So I said, look, I'm happy to, in between the campaign that we finished, Werewolf, good morning. In between the campaign that we finished and what was going to be another campaign, I said, look, I wouldn't mind running a little one shot, just a little idea. I'd like to give it a go, just to see how I'd sort of get on. And it was like, yeah, okay, great. And I started with it was one map. It was essentially a room where it was like a gauntlet, like a trials sort of thing, and the party would turn up, and they'll be offered 3 different doors. And through one of the doors was a puzzle, one of the doors was a fight, and one of the doors was a sort of trap room where they had to step on certain tiles and not get spiked and all that sort of thing. That's how that sort of started, and then once you got through that room, you got into another room, and there was like magic items you had to choose. Morning, Kimmy. You had to choose a magic item. One of them was like the boots of striding and springing to make you jump further and that sort of thing. So one of these magic items would have been very, very helpful for the next room, but the other 2 not so much. So it was a case of choosing the right one. Morning, Plagued, and Nico. Morning, Nico. So it was a case of trying to choose the correct magic item. One of them would have really helped out, the other 2 not so much. So that idea expanded. I was like, okay, we got that, and I was like, well, I'd kind of like a person to guide them through, an NPC to sort of interact with, and dear player, how goes the adventure? Yeah, not too bad. Played. It's going very well. I'm just waiting for some flooring compound to dry. Hence, I'm talking to everyone, and I'm just telling everyone how we sort of started how I personally started playing Dungeons and Dragons. I'm now I'm a forever DM, and I'm very, very pleased for that. So I'm just sort of giving my little story of how I personally got into it. Yeah, so it started out, I designed this little one shot, and I wanted a character for them to interact with. I wanted someone to role play. So I came up with the character of Max Rebo, which for any Star Wars fans out there will ring a bell. He's an obscure Star Wars character. I started playing because I told all my characters could be clowns. Yeah, absolutely. You could be funny, ha clowns, or it's scary clowns, or wherever you want to be. That's the absolute beauty of Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, that is the great thing of it. Yeah, so I caught this character Max Rebo, who he talks like this. Good evening, my friends. He has a very low, monotoned kind of voice. Speaks very deliberately, slowly, purposefully. He's a little bit like Agent Smith from The Matrix, actually, I suppose, in terms of how he speaks. So I spoke to him. That's probably the first NPC character I ever came up with, who's still prevalent today in the current campaign that we're running. So I came up with that, and that was the idea. And then once I'd had that map drawn out and the rest of it, we was trying to organise people. Also, people mentioned. Yeah, and then again, scheduling conflicts. Do our guys want to come around tonight and play? Because I wasn't keen on doing it online. I wanted to do it in person. I wanted to have everyone there sitting around a table, and all that sort of thing. So I went out and I bought like a whiteboard sort of map that you can buy online, that you can use whiteboard pen to draw on. Then I started to go out and buy some minis. Morning, Coach Bishop. Yeah, I started to buy some stuff, and I actually bought some. I think actually Warhammer minis is what they are. It was just like some skeletons, like ten skeletons, I think they were, and I sort of stuck them all. I stuck them all together, and I didn't paint them, so they were unpainted, but they were a representation of minis on the map. So I bought some stuff, and I bought some of the cards, the like cards from the Monster Manual. I don't know if you've seen them. They're like a literal card that has the stat blocks on the back and a picture of the creature on the front, so my goblins and that sort of thing. Very useful. Still use them for today. And once I had, once I had a few of those sort of bits, and then I had this idea of, okay, so they're running this gauntlet. Okay, fine. But I thought, why are they running this gauntlet? It's just a one shot, so it doesn't really matter. And I thought, yeah, it does matter actually. I want to know why they're doing it. So I added a bit of story to that. There was a prisoner who was trapped. He's been trapped by someone. Party didn't find out who that was. They've been trapped and they're a prisoner. You've been sent to free them. So now it turned from just, oh, here's a gauntlet of some challenges to do. Now I had a bit of a story behind it, and I had a reason. Why? Oh, they've been kidnapped by this evil person. Okay, well, why have they been kidnapped? Well, they've been kidnapped because they are the prince, right? I know the classic rescuing the prince, princess. That cliche. It's a cliche for a reason. We all love it. So yeah, once I'd sort of done that, and then it was like a bit more like, well, okay, what's so important about this particular prince? Is he heir to the throne, or does he have some sort of magic? And it just kind of built from there. And every time I thought I'd kind of got it worked out, I was posing more questions on myself. I was posing more ideas on myself, and I was posing, well, actually, there could be a little bit more. This might be more than a one shot. This might be sort of 2 or 3 sessions. And I could build a bit more. Maybe I could have a little town beforehand. Like, the adventurers, they're part of this town. They're part of this community. Do they know who this prince is? Why have they been selected? Why not send the town guard? Why not send the army? Why not send the king himself? Why not? And there's all these sort of reasons. And once I started asking myself questions, I was building more and more and more about why that would all make sense. I was trying to build a bit more of a story to it. So I need more than one. I need more than one NPC. Now I need a few NPCs, so I came up with a few NPCs. There was the old the high sorcerer. There was the king himself. There was the prince. Then you need some town guards. And I thought, well, I don't want to go through and name an entire army because that's absurd. So I come up with the great commander Greyheart, who was the leader of the Silver Knights, who were the elite sort of guards for the king. And the reason they'd hired the party was because having the prince kidnapped is very embarrassing for the Silver Knights and the army. You can't have people knowing that he's been kidnapped, and they can't just send the whole army in there because people are going to know what's up. They're going to know, hang on a minute, why they're all going to there? What's happened? So my idea was the reason the party was sent is because the town guard and the king himself wanted to keep it quiet that his son had been kidnapped, because that's very embarrassing, and the more people knew about it, the more people might have tried to extort the king for it. Oh, we know where he is, but you have to pay us, and all that sort of thing. So our adventurers, our party, were the sort of trusted ones to go in and save the prince. So this sort of one shot idea, and then once I'd sort of built upon that, I started to build some more and more and more, and then it turned into a whole it turned into a whole, basically a whole homebrew campaign, where I'd essentially just kept asking myself questions. Why is the party doing this? Okay, they're doing it for them, but why do they care? And why do they care? And what's the reward? Could this be something else? Now, do they just rescue the prince, and that's the end of it, or do they then prove themselves to be worthy adventurers, and they're given a position high up in the Silver Knights, for example? Are they a trusted band of mercenaries, or do they become knights themselves, or are they kept as a sort of are they kept as like a rogue sort of bunch of secret sort of like special forces kind of guys that go in and a bit like the SAS or the Delta Force, or if you want to use mainstream media, a bit like the Guardians of the Galaxy. They do stuff, but it has to be kept quiet. So once that was sort of established, and then it was like, right, okay, well, instead of it being a prince, what I want to do is try and tie it into the previous campaign, and the only campaign that I've actually played. I've actually personally played through one campaign. I've DM'd for a lot, but I've only only played in one campaign. I've played various one shots, and even I've played in my own campaign last year when I got a bit of DM burnout where I'd written this whole campaign and then something major happened within the campaign. And I had to scrap about 3 months worth of writing and then change it, and I got really sort of I wound myself up about it, rewriting the campaign to suit what had happened. The players had decided to do something, and I'm a very reactive DM. So if the players do something in the campaign, it matters. It changes things. It changes the world. And in this example, they basically got one of my major NPCs, got them killed. So that wiped out a huge quest line point for them. A character called Lady Lavender, who was a high elf. She was essentially a major quest giver at the beginning of this homebrew campaign, our current campaign, The Dance of the Death. She was a major player in that, and because of their actions, they essentially got her killed. Now, all the quest lines and all that sort of thing obviously died with her. Now, I know, and people have said this to me before, like, why didn't you just have her come back to life? Or, you know, she was protected, or she didn't die, she just teleports out, or something like that. But I thought I could do that. But then what does that teach the players? It doesn't, you know, like it kind of doesn't really matter what you do, because I'm just going to change it and I'm just going to make it be like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, don't worry about it. You do what you want. If you mess up, it doesn't really matter, because I'm going to change it and I'm going to make sure everyone's all right. And, you know, I was doing dice rolls. They were being attacked. She was rolling poorly. She went to death saving throws, 3 no's. That was it. She died. So I got, yeah, so that was the way that was. And I still bring it up now. This would have happened. This would have been coming up to about a year ago, almost exactly, give or take. I could find out. We have the old footage on the other apps that you can use for social media. We have it recorded. If you really want to check it out, go ahead and follow our links, and you'll find it. Episode 2, it would have been. Yeah, so, you know, and it really had a major impact on the campaign. But then again, because that's what my players decided to do, I had to rewrite, and then so their actions really do matter to the campaign, and what they're doing through the story matters. And if they die, or someone else is, you know, they don't go down a certain path, or they believe that that person is actually a traitor, and they then react differently than that information that NPC would have given the party, doesn't become available to them. You know, and if they miss things, then they miss things. You know, that's that they move on. They can go into areas unprepared or uneducated, or whatever the case, you know, whatever the case may be. So that's, you know, that's why that's why I really like Dungeons and Dragons as a whole. Because you can change the story. The players can change the story. Now, I was talking to a couple of guys last Wednesday, some other fellow DMs, and they have a bit of a different outlook to me than on about Dungeons and Dragons. And I believe they said that they're running a narrative. So they have a story, which I imagine they've come up. Well, I know they've come up with themselves. They've written out a story. The players are there, and the players are playing through their story. Right? That's fantastic. That's fantastic. It's not easy to do. And as far as I'm aware, the players are having an absolute blast. They're having a great time doing that. Fantastic. Love it. However, they were saying about they do stuff like cutaways, like cut scenes, in like you get in a computer game or in a film where you see what the bad guy's up to, even though the protagonist isn't there. It cuts away and you get to see what the bad guy's doing and whatever else. I'm not a fan of that. The reason I'm not a fan of it is basically because the campaign, Dungeons and Dragons, is told through the character's eyes, through your player's eyes. So they see what they see. They interact with whoever they interact with, and the results are a direct reaction to their actions, right? So if the bad guys they have a big evil scheme and all that sort of thing, of course they do. But the players aren't, the players aren't privy to that information because they're not there. And especially in this sort of world, there's no way of them knowing that, you know, in a different part of the kingdom, this conversation's going on, and they're trying to sort of backstab the party, or they're setting up a trap, or luring them somewhere. Now, because the players aren't there to witness that, they don't witness it. They quite and that's how I think it sort of is, because in not to bring in the real world into we play D&D to get away from the real world. But in terms of as I'm sitting here right now, I don't know what my wife could be talking to her friend about me about something. You know, she could be upset that I sit here talking to TikTok in the spare time when I could be phoning her. Who knows? I'd rather do this, but you know what I mean. But I'm not privy to that conversation, so I don't know what's being said because I'm not there. I don't have a security camera on her or anything to witness what's going on right now. Again, even right now, I'm waiting for some flooring compound to dry. I don't know how that's getting on, even though I'm 15 feet away from the front door. Unless I physically get up and have a look, I don't know what's happening there. Now, it's safe to assume, through my experience and using this particular compound, that it's drying nicely and soon I'll be able to continue my job. But until I look, I don't know. And that's only over there. And so, like that in Dungeons and Dragons, the players might be really, really close to something. There could be a hidden door, a secret door. It might be right there. Now I know it's there. I put it there. But if the players aren't looking for it, or if they are looking for it and they roll poorly and everyone rolls poorly, then they don't see it. I don't agree with, you know, because if they don't see it, they don't see it. And it's the same reason if you're doing ability checks on, let's say, a history check, okay, and that I'm a fan of using sort of tapestries and stonework and that sort of thing in my dungeons I design. So there'll be a mural or a tapestry or something like that. Now, the players might go up to it and say, morning, El, Mr. Conservative, and anyone else I missed whilst I was waffling away. The players might go up to it and say, oh, this is an interesting tapestry. What does it depict? Well, it depicts two dragons fighting, but they appear to be in space, you know, or whatever the case may be. Oh, okay. Do I recognise this from, have I seen this before, or seen something like this before, either in a book, or was it the story told to me as a child, or, you know, would I have seen this about? Is this a well-known thing, or is this a new thing? I always compare it to, you know, you recognise the flag of your nation. So for me, the Union Jack, obviously I find it easy, the Star Spangled Banner if you're American, or whatever else. If you saw that flag, you know what that is. Yeah, absolutely fine. The odds of you recognise. But if there's a different flag, another nation's flag who you don't recognise, you know, you recall back to when you're at school perhaps and you were doing world flags, or you recall to when you've been watching the Olympic Games and you see the flag raised because they've won, or whatever it may be. Like, you know what I mean? Like you either, and when you're doing ability checks, my players will roll history. Okay, I want to know if I've seen this before. Fine, roll history. Okay, they're rolling that one. Okay, and it's like, no, you don't know. You don't know what it is. Your character doesn't recognise it. You simply don't know. And like there's plenty of things to use world flags as a to use world flags as an example. Now I'm quite good at world flags. I can name a lot of them, but there's a hell of a lot I don't know. Oh, Jacqueline, good morning again. There's a hell of a lot of them I don't recognise, and it doesn't matter how long I would stare at this particular flag, I wouldn't know what it was unless someone told me or I went and then looked it up. So with good morning, you're on the night shift again, I'm assuming. It's midday here in sunny Essex I'm in today. Yeah, so you basically wouldn't know. So when the players roll history on it and they're rolling that one, it's like, do I recognise it? No, you don't recognise it at all. You've never seen this before. You have no recollection of it. Fine, and that's why. But then they don't get to check again. So they can't just go, okay, well, you poor thing. I'm glad. So I'm sitting here waiting for things to happen again so I can start. So this is the juxtaposition. You seem to always at work in the early hours of the morning. I'm waiting for stuff to start happening so I can work. So there you go. Yeah, so it's that sort of juxtaposition where they don't know. And so that's why they don't check again. That's quite simply that they don't sit there and be like, right, okay, you don't recognise this, you don't remember it. Okay, well, I want to check again. Okay, fine, you can check, you can check again, but I'm just going to raise the DC even higher. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not going to have it, right, if the DC was 15 before, well, now it's like 25, because you've looked at it, you don't know. Have another look if you want a real good look at it. Like if you're really sort of struggling, I really think about it, especially if it's something that I have put in the campaign before and the characters have already seen. So say, for example, if this is a tapestry, perhaps they've seen this painting hanging in the King's Chamber. Perhaps they've seen it in the reception room of a dining hall or something, something like that. It's King Kong, morning King Kong, afternoon I should say. Like, but if they've seen it before, then the DC becomes a lot lower. And most of the time, if I've put a big tapestry there that depicts two dragons fighting or whatever it is, and there's been a painting of it somewhere else before, then I want the players to remember that. So the DC will be 5, and if but instantly if they go, wait a minute, isn't this the same painting as what we saw in the castle? And then it's no check, because the player slash the character has remembered that was it, and then that gets rid of that check. Yes, it is. Yeah, you look at it. I'm not going to make you roll for it. That is the same painting. Well, wait a minute. That was the bad guy had that in his, and now it's here. Wait, or whatever it is. So that's fine. So, yeah, so when you're doing any sort of history check, or a medicine check, or survival check, or any sort of check, if you're trying to look at something and the character doesn't know what they're looking at, you know, and that's a really, really silly thing to say, but either the character knows or they don't. There's very little that they kind of know, you know, but if they kind of know, then it's obviously something that I would have already put in for them, or part of their backstory, or something of that nature, where I've deliberately put it in there for it to be found, because there's lots of things, especially with D&D and computer games in general, I suppose, that they, you know, they want you to find these things. They want you to discover them. It helps you out on the way. It helps push the story on. It helps move things around. It helps, you know, some sort of revelation, or it helps some sort of, you know, it could be a puzzle piece or a clue towards a puzzle, or whatever it may be, you know. So it's important that they find certain things. So that's why you drop the DC down to difficulty class, right the way down to something that is not unfailable, but when you know if your players have got like +6 or +7 to their history, and you know, and then so they basically can't fail it. Now I don't do critical success or failure on skill checks. The only criticals we do, hence crit happens, is on attack rolls. So we don't do, so even if you roll a nat 1 on your history but you've got +6, then that's a 7, which is, you know, a little bit below average but passable. I don't do, oh, it's a nat 1, so you forget your name and forget how to sit down and just, you know, fall over or something stupid. You know, I don't do that. Same for critical success, and that's more the reason that I don't do it, is because when they're, say, looking at the tapestry, now I might have something hidden in and amongst that tapestry. There could be some clue or a word, or there could be like an item hidden in there that's an answer to a riddle that they're going to come up against later on, or that they've already previously been posed the question and they're looking for, you know, oh, my coloured chalice, which is it, or something like that. Or, wait a minute, there's a silver chalice in that. Wait, is it silver? Like, you know, or whatever it may be. Yeah. So, but again, with a critical success on morning, Ray. I keep saying morning, it's afternoon, Ray. On a critical success, if I'm trying to hide something within the world, if I'm trying to, I have something sort of built up, sort of story-wise, it's difficult to have a critical success, because that could give them a lot more information than what they could have possibly have gotten. You know, it makes them all of a sudden looking at this tapestry. Wait a minute, I know that that's Bahamut and Tiamat, and this was made by Lord Vecna, and the reason he made this is actually you can splurge all this information that you may have been building, and that's just, I've made that example up. That's not something I'm doing, but you know, you can splurge all of this information that the party wouldn't know, and just because they got a critical success, all of a sudden you're giving them loads and loads of lore about it. I disagree, because I think that it doesn't really matter sort of character-wise, like as in real life. You're as good at something as you are as good at it as. You know, that, you know, it's quite simply, you can, I mean, if you can't slam dunk on a 10-foot rim, right? Say you can't do it. You're not tall enough, you're not athletic enough, you haven't got the, you know, you can't jump, you're not fit enough like me to try and run and jump that distance now. Like, my fitness is terrible. But, you know what I mean? But you know, and it doesn't really matter, even if you really try and you roll a nat, you know, nat 20, and you really try and you really leap as hard as you can and you really feel good and you spring up, you're still not going to get there. You know, you might get really close, really close, like, oh, so close and whatever else, but that's your limit. That's as high as you're going to get. You're not going to get there unless you really train at it, and put lots of practice in, and change your footwear, and then speak to an expert, and then timing and all this, which is what leveling up is, the equivalent of your practicing training to improve yourself. And then if you level up, you might get boost your intelligence or whatever, and your wisdom, to then you're, you know, might start getting more pluses on your history and that sort of thing. Then, you know, that's how that works. what that's sort of saying is, and again, to use this tapestry as an example, a hanging tapestry. Now, there could be lots and lots of hidden clues in and amongst that, but the party's not going to know it. You're just not going to know it because it's hidden in the world. It's a secret thing and all that. If they were to get a critical success, all of a sudden I've got to give them loads of information that they just would not have known. It's not possible. There's some secret code in there, like the Enigma machine that the Germans were using back in World War II and whatnot. It's the equivalent. It's the equivalent of the British getting an Enigma machine and going, oh, that's it, I've sussed it out. Yeah, I've sussed it out first, straight away, just sussed it out. Yeah, it's really, really easy, done it. Like, it doesn't happen like that. I can't remember the name of the British guy who solved the Enigma. What was his name? That's going to bug me. Turing, Alan Turing. And yeah, the great Alan Turing. That's like him looking at getting the hold of an Enigma machine and going, oh, actually, it's just that. Look, solved it. Solved it instantly. Solved this incredibly hard, nearly impossible puzzle. They did solve it, of course, but you know what I mean. And that just sort of doesn't happen. The reason they solved the Enigma was after months and months and months and months of trying and trial and error and all that, and it was actually a mistake by a German radio operator who kept saying the same thing at the beginning of the end of his transmissions. That phrase, I'm not going to say on here, but we all know what it was. Yeah, and that's how they sussed it out. So only through a mistake of his did they figure it out. But that is, again, the equivalent of leveling up. You know, they really, really tried. They were trying and trying and trying, kept trying until they eventually got, but they got a little bit lucky, but they got it. And then all of a sudden the code was broken, the puzzle was broken. So it's the same thing in Dungeons and Dragons. Now, there might be a puzzle, but they're going to keep looking at it and looking at it and looking at it. And as time goes on, they might progress through the dungeon, through the world, speak to these different people. And one random person might just have a little bit of a throwaway comment, a little bit of yeah, I've heard that. Weird thing to say, like, oh, my chalice is silver, but really it's purple. Just thought it was a really odd thing for someone to say. Like, I don't know if he was drunk or whatever. Now, that little phrase means nothing to this NPC. They've just, yeah, barman said, yeah, it's been a bit weird. Something about my chalice is purple, my chalice is silver, but really it's purple. Like, I think stop serving him. He's had too many to drink. But to the party, that could be that key, vital piece of information that they need. They might need that. Wait a minute. What did he say? What did he say? He said that. What? You know? Why is that important to you? It means nothing to me. Yeah, but to us, that's important. Quick, let's go back and solve that puzzle. Now, with a critical success, that's like having that piece of information. You know, you're staring at it, and then you realise, oh, all of a sudden, for no reason whatsoever, for no reason at all, but all of a sudden, your character realises and figures it out. But if the party hasn't figured that out, and that's where I sort of sit with it. If the party hasn't figured that out, then what does it matter? You know, I don't like it where if the players work out, if there's a riddle, a puzzle or something like that I've put in front of them, and they, you know, the players work it out as their characters or whatever, great, that's the whole idea. But I will not just give them the answer to something because they've rolled well. Like, do you know what I mean? I'm going to try and solve the puzzle. I'm going to see if there's any more clues. Oh, nat 20. Well, that's a critical success. You find the absolute most hidden information that you could possibly find, and you solve the puzzle. Okay, so what's the answer to the riddle then? Or what's the answer to the puzzle? But if the players can't tell me, then they're not gonna solve it. This is that story narrative sort of telling side of things. Yeah, but in the story, you solved the puzzle right now. Okay, what's the answer then? Well, you tell me. You've solved it. Yeah, but we don't actually know what it is. Exactly that. Morning, afternoon, wild bucks. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you have to, it has to be done through the character's eyes. Now, obviously, the players playing as the characters. Now, if they solve a puzzle or whatever else, fantastic. You know, that is their reward. They're like, you get through that locked door, you open up that chest and all that sort of thing. You know, that's great. But not to just walk in and, well, I rolled high, so I must succeed. It doesn't work like that. You're not going to, it's like the best. And again, with a nat 20, I always ask, oh, nat 20, and my players now, for example, they'll say, right, okay, roll history for me, roll insight for me. Oh, nat 20 for 25, or nat 20 for 22, or whatever it is. So they're getting 20, but then they're adding the modifier on and giving me the overall number, as opposed to, we used to be like, right, okay, you're trying to insight check this guy, he looks a bit shady. Yeah, I want to get a read off of him. I want to see if he's like lying or telling the truth. And with insight, I take it as if like a poker face, how good they are at, you know, at whatever. Yeah, I want to have a look at him and see if I can get a read off. He's telling this information, but I don't really trust him. So let's have a look. Okay, roll me an insight check. Right, nat 20. And you go, okay, great. Nat 20, yeah, nat 20, then that's it, it's done. It's like, what's your modifier? What's your intelligence modifier? What is it? Well, it's 3, right? So it's 23, right? Well, the DC was 25, you know, afternoon grizzly. The DC was 25. So no, you look at him, and you know, even with a nat 20, so for 23, the best possible, most insightful that character could have possibly be, I will say something like, you look at the guy, he seems a little shifty. He seems to be sort of shifting around a bit. He's sort of clicking his knuckles. He's playing with his wedding ring, or he's itching his head, or something like that. You get the impression that there's something he's saying might not be quite true. He's bending the truth somewhere. You don't know precisely what it is. You don't know precisely what it is, but there's something a bit dodgy about it. Now, you could argue, whether it's got nat 20, it should say that, you know, oh yeah, you need to, what you want to do is just go down to that basement there. There's just a few rats. There's a few rats down there. Can you just kill them for me? Can you just kill them for me? Yeah, just a few rats. I don't like the way this guy is. Like, he seems, okay, I'm going to insight check him. You know, okay, he's hiding it very well, but it's not actually a few rats down there. There could be a band of goblins down there, or a grick down there, or a nothic down there, or something much, much bigger. So if they're rolling a nat 20 and getting inside 23, now the DC may have been 25 because this guy might be really good at lying for whatever reason. But I would say something like, yeah, you're not entirely sure what it is. You don't quite know what's down there, but you get the impression that the problem may be a little bit bigger than just rats. You get the impression that there may be something a bit more dangerous down there. So it's not just rats that are down there. There's rats and something else down there that he might not want to tell you in case you decide not to go down there and do it. You know, oh, I've had this rat problem for months. Okay, well, why haven't you gone down there? Why have you not gone down there and sorted out this rat problem? Like, if there's only a few rats down there, why haven't you put some poison down, or whatever else it may be? You know, why is it taking so long? Why is it taking a group of adventurers with swords and shields and bows and arrows and magic? You know, why are you approaching them about it? Like, it's just a little rat problem. I don't understand. Like, you know, oh no, it's just rats. It's just rats. Now, if they then, with their 23 on the insight in that example, if they then push on for it and like, actually, are you sure? You know, are you sure it's just rats? And start asking those kind of questions. Why haven't you gone down there and done it? Now, I will make that NPC like deliberately splutter on their work. Well, it's just, yeah, I don't really like rats. I'm scared. Yeah, I don't really like rats, and I just don't want to go down there at all. Yeah, you just go down there, and then all of a sudden, like, really obviously start being shifty. Really obviously start being like rattled by the player's words, and then they should be able to work out without even really doing a check, but amongst themselves, like, hey, this is well shifty and that sort of thing. Then if they pursued that line, no, mate, I think you're lying to us. I really think you're lying to us. No, I'm not lying to you. I'm not lying to you. Now, to make that obvious that clearly he is. And then they could say, right, I want to insight that. Him going, no, that's just that, it's just that. Now, all of a sudden, that insight check, the DC from that goes from 25, because he was really, really, you know, confident about it. Now it's going down to like 10 or something like that, because he's obviously being shifty. Then the party go, right, okay, well, I rolled a 17. Well, 17's more than enough. And I'll say, he's clearly lying. He's clearly lying about what's down there. And you notice that the moment you challenged him on, is it just rats, he sort of fell apart. So it's like, right, mate, you clearly are lying. What else is down there? And then perhaps go to intimidate him, perhaps go to dissuade him. Right, okay, well, now you can intimidate with advantage or persuade with advantage because you've unsettled him. You've unsettled him now. And now he's going to go, all right, fine. There's like a Nothic thing down there. All right, that 3 or 4 adventurers have been down there already, never came back up. So, like, you know, I'm really, really scared. I'm sorry that I lied to you, but I just need, and then that progresses. So the party get the information that they're after. They got more information than they perhaps would have done. And because they, again, rolled so high on the initial with that nat 20, right? They rolled that nat 20 for an insight now of 23. Again, the DC was 25, but because they rolled that high, it led them down the path of, yep, keep pursuing this line of questioning. All right. Now, had they failed it sort of miserably, say, to use that example, say it was a 17, I will say something like, you have no reason to distrust this barman who's sending you down to the thing. He's not giving you any sign. He's not giving you any signs that he's being dishonest. Now, like in real life, it's then up to the characters and the players to ascertain exactly what that means. You know, that is up to them to decide, like, right, okay, well, we've got no information from it. The guy's saying it's just rats down there. we had a look at him. Yeah, he seems to be telling the truth. Seems to be. Like, you've got no reason, he's giving you no reason to trust him. That's not to say he's not lying. That's not to say he isn't being dishonest, but you've got no reason to distrust him. Now, I tend to allow the party to, they often do the help action and things like that. So if they are asking people questions, I'll say roll an insight check. More often than not, one of the other players go, can I help with that? And I go, yes, you can. So now you're going to roll your insight at advantage. And how I say they're going to help with an insight is, I imagine if the two characters stand next to each other, they're talking to the NPC, one of them gives them a little nudge and be like, yeah, do you think he's lying? Yeah, tell you what, you know, I'm going to watch him, I'm going to look at his body language, I'm going to look at, see if like if he's sweating or if he's fidgeting a lot or if he's, you know, whatever else. And then so that's how I give advantage that two players two people are looking at this one guy, and they're both trying to pick up on little tells, little signs, little things like that. Perhaps the rogue is looking as well. The rogue with thieves can't and all this sort of stuff, who spent a lot of his life in these sort of underground and sort of, I say, murky places and with unsavoury kind of people. Perhaps he's better at reading sort of poker faces than, say, the paladin is. Who the paladin's just trying to believe in Christ, you know, whatever. So again, that gives the characters more to do in terms of, you know, a rogue by right, depending what kind of rogue they are, would by rights know more about, again, when people are lying and if they're trying to cheat at like dice or something like that. Whereas a fighter or say a paladin or something like that would be, you know, looking at strategical advantages. Then that they may find a marching order from the king, and you found the marching order for the parade tomorrow. Well, that doesn't make a lot of sense, because now the fighter might look at that, who may have served in the military, and be like, well, hang on a minute, you know, you look at it and something's not quite right about it. Okay, well, I'm going to roll investigation, roll insight, roll something like that to look at this marching plan, this bit of paper with how they go. Well, hang on a minute, they've got all these people on that side, all these people on that side. There's a big gap down the middle where the king's going to be. Why is that? He's not protected. He's not protected by his flank. When I used to be in the military, in the army, you would always have two, and then you'd have a battalion at the front there protecting the, you know, why is he exposed? What is that? Well, hang on a minute, who wrote this marching order up? Let's go speak to them. Excuse me, Captain such and such, why did you, and then, you know, that, and whatever that leads on to that. Now, you know, the wizard, for example, might not be too hot on the marching formations of foot soldiers, for example. He's probably not going to be. He's probably not going to be too hot on that. He can still ask the question, but the fighter with a military background, they're going to get advantage. They're going to get advantage because that's their background. That's where they came from. If we're visiting an old town that one of the players is part of their backstory, now things may have changed slightly, because otherwise you have the bit of a problem of a player going into a town and you've drawn a map out. Now, by rights, obviously that player should know everything about that town. Now, they don't tend to know everything about that town because that involves, I mean, you can give them all the prep and run it by them, but in terms of my style of DMing, I want my players to be all on an equal sort of playing field whenever we go into a new area, or if we're dealing with someone or something. I want everyone to be like just as educated or uneducated about the subject as everyone else is, because otherwise you get that little bit of a problem where it's like a little bit of a problem where one character then goes front and centre, has a bit of main character syndrome, and the rest of the characters then take a back seat. Now, if you're going to be like we currently are, we play every week, play every Friday, but the sort of pacing of it's fine, but we tend to spend quite a long time in each of these areas. Now, you know, it can take us literally sort of 2 or 3 months to get through an area, a big area, a big town or something like that, with the dungeons and the bosses and the role play and the buying and the shopping and all this sort of thing. It can take us sort of 2 or 3 months, like literal real life months to get through. The area that we started in now, we started back in November. It's now January. We're not really any closer to getting through it in terms of, and again, we're playing every week, so you know that takes time. But the problem with that is, if you have players who are front and centre for this, like this means for 2 or 3 months, the wizard, who doesn't know much about this place, isn't really getting involved in the role play. He's not really getting involved in anything that's sort of, you know, anything that's sort of going on. He's not really getting involved of any, you know, any of the action because he's waiting for the barbarian who used to live here. Well, he's got to do all the role play. He's got to speak to everyone about everything because he knows everyone and he knows all this sort of stuff. And then it takes it away from that party of sort of 6 or 7 players like I have, like I'm very fortunate to have. It takes this, 5 of them out of the commission and just focuses everything on one player, which is fine if you're doing the backstory bit, but not for the entire session or not for the entire run of this dungeon. And that's the sort of problem with it, because otherwise you just end up with me, the DM, and this one player constantly going back and forth, like talking in role playing and that sort of thing, which is fantastic. But then the others are just sort of sitting there and don't really want to interject and don't really want to interfere with anything. It's like, well, he clearly knows what he's on about. He knows this guy. We'll let them two have a conversation. I'll just wait. And then, okay, where are we going? Oh, we got to go down here. Okay, great, off we go. And yeah, so I don't like doing that. So even when, like we are now, we're in a place called Tattershall, which is essentially it's a mix between Las Vegas and ancient Rome. Okay, kind of think Gladiator and The Hangover, right? That's kind of what we're doing at the minute, which is fine. But my Goliath barbarian guy called Rurik, he was a slave here, and he fought in the Colosseum. He won his freedom, then left, and has been out on adventures. Now he's had to come back because the guy who's running the Tattershall now is a very evil person. He's a slave owner and all that, and obviously that needs to be taken care of. So they've come back now. So you have a bit of you've got a bit of a background there between Rurik, my player, and Ishmael, the Master of Change, the owner of Tattershall, and they're trying to make their way through. They're trying to make through the dungeon and solve this equation that's in front of them. However, because Rurik has been away from Tattershall for 10, 15 years now, a lot of it's changed. So, like, the shopping district will still be there, the Colosseum will still be there, the nightlife area, which is called Pleasure Bay, so take that for what you want it to be, that's still there, but the people who own the shops, they're different. The people who run the supply chains, they're different. The people in charge, they are different. So although he knows, and again, the layout's slightly different. They've built things, they've knocked other things down. There was an attack 10 years ago, so that half of the town was destroyed. That's now been rebuilt, but obviously differently. So he's walking through with an understanding of this place. He's walking through with an understanding of the layout, of how it kind of works. Like, he knows the shadow stalls, for example, is the market. It's like a black market sort of thing. It's all stolen magic items and potions of alchemy and all the sort of things you shouldn't be able to buy, mini gelatinous cubes in a jar, all this sort of thing that you can't really buy anywhere else in the kingdom. You can get them here. So so he knows that the shadow stalls are a thing. They're a big part of the town and all that sort of thing. But when they went there to go shopping, he didn't know any of the shop owners. He didn't really even know the shop names. They've changed names and all that sort of thing. So he's familiar with it. Like, well, yeah, the shadow stalls are this way. We know it's this way. Okay, well, and again, I've made them a map to sort of follow. But they go there, and it's like, right, so Rurik, what's the best place to go to? He's like, well, I don't really know. And he can feel free and say there used to be an armory here or a blacksmith here called Hemmek, for example. Right, let's go look for him now. Oh no, Hemmek, he left years ago. I don't know what you talk about. He left when Ishmael took over. He got rid of all these people, and bang, then you've got a bit of backstory between this blacksmith that they used to like and he was friends with. Well, now Ishmael's come over and taken over. Well, he's got rid of him. Well, what happened to my mate Hemmek? Well, not only has he taken over this place and turned it into a pit of despair for the common folk, he's now attacked old friends of mine. He's now attacked personal people of mine. So, I want to get to it and whatnot. And then the party will support Rurik in his quest to help find that. But they're all in it together. So how to get round the idea of the player knowing what this area is basically change it enough that you either give it 2 ways. You either give them, with your player, you either spend a long time on the backstory and then, right, so this is the town. Okay, this is what I've come up with. Are you happy with this? Would you want me to change something? Was there perhaps a large fountain or something in the middle that you used to play in when you was a kid and all that stuff? Well, yeah, there was actually. Okay, great, we'll put a fountain in there then. That's still there, fantastic. And and you have to really, really go through with it. So, and then, I mean, it'd be great as a DM because when you get to this town and if the player has excuse me, an intricate knowledge of the place because you've come up with it together, I can then say, well, tell you what, when we get to town, your town, lead the party. I'm not going to say anything, but you know what it looks like. You know, I describe the place unless we're very, very lucky. I have some physical 3D towns built, printed, painted, and you know, that we can actually play on. Look for our videos on the channel, you'll see it. You know, but not for everywhere, obviously. As much as I'd like to, like, you know, I'd have to build a literal, you know, it doesn't matter, I'd have to move house because of all the things. Anyway, you know, so I know we turn up to this place here, I describe it. I do tend to use a real world reference if I can, not too heavily, because I like to break the immersion. But again, Tatter's Hall, for example, like I explained to you, a little bit of a mystery in Las Vegas and ancient Rome, looks a bit like Marrakesh. Okay, and what that tends to do is it gives my players an idea of what I'm sort of, you know, what I'm sort of getting in, you know, or you can go for a Mos Eisley Cantina in Star Wars. Okay, you can go for that sort of thing if you like. Again, that's what I do. I'll give them a real world reference or a reference to another famous, you know, it's like the Shire. Okay, and instantly that centralises everyone's view onto kind of where you're at. Now, how one person imagines this area is going to be different from the guy sitting next to him, but you have a baseline. At least you have a baseline of, it looks like Marrakesh. Okay, if you don't know what Marrakesh looks like, okay, well then it's like a you know, lots of market town, big stalls. Have you seen John Wick? Okay, great. You know when John Wick goes to the desert and the high table turns up and they've got the camels and the tent and all that. It all looks like that. Okay, like, you know what I mean. You can find references in all forms of media to kind of the place you're trying to describe. Now, if the player knows, so Rurik, for example, now if he knows this town like the back of his hand and he's only been gone for 6 months, say he's left his village for an adventuring life and 6 months later in campaign time we've now come back to the village. Now the odds are, unless something dramatics happen, like it's been attacked by the Tarrasque or an Othlid or something like that, like the town is going to be nearly exactly the same. Now I might sit there and be like, right, okay, you turn up to the town, you don't recognise anyone. Now there's people in the town, it's thriving, but you don't recognise anyone. Huh, what's happened here? What's going on? Well, I want to go to the butcher's, see old Bert the butcher, see if he's still there. Okay, you go and see to Bert's Butchers, but it doesn't say Bert's Butchers anymore. It says Bob's Butchers, Bob's Burgers, or whatever. And then, you know, so he would know the town. He know there's a butcher's there. He know he used to play in the fountain. He know his old school chum Ryan lived at the house at the end by the well. Okay, well, let's go to the house at the end by the well. And he knows the way there, and he can describe what this looks like. And because it's his own hometown, he can describe it. And whatever he says it looks like, that's what it looks like. You know, that's it. That's what it looks like. So I could just sit back, let him run that area, let him run whatever it is and describe what's going on and describe the layout of the town, which we would describe together. Yeah, there was a small barracks at the back. They used to keep some weapons there, but they were locked up. Okay, great. Well, I'm going to put a magic item in there then. You know, they're going to go to the barracks and it's now either deserted or the guards have changed or they're wearing different tunics or something like that. Bang, there's a mystery. So he knows the place, but he doesn't know what's going on. And the rest of the players, okay, they don't know the place, but they also don't know what's going on. So they get to go through that, the characters together, to find out that there's a false Hydra here or something like that, you know, to use that cliche, or whatever it may be. So yeah, that's sort of how you do it in terms of how much your players know and then how much they can describe their places and their interests. Now, a lot of the time, my players either haven't asked me or don't want me to do that. They want to go into an area, have me describe what's going on. I populate the world with NPCs and trials and tribulations and shops and all this sort of thing. Shopping's a real bugbear of mine at the minute, but you know, I'm not getting into that now. And yeah, and so, you know, and that's what they're happy to do. They're happy just to listen and to listen to what's going on and go through it all together, sort of, you know, as characters learning all on the way. And even if one of them is familiar with the area, it doesn't mean they're familiar with what's going on. And I think you should, to a certain extent, keep the players in like a fog of war of mystery. You know, everywhere they go, they should have some idea of what they're meant to be doing there, who are the important people to talk to when they're there, or what they're looking for, and who might be able to find what they're looking for. But other than that, I tend to let them have a bit of carte blanche again at the minute when we're in this Tatters Hall place. They don't really know. There's no one clear direction for them to go in, but they're just sort of okay. Well, we'll try going here. We speak to these people. They've learnt that there's like an underground resistance, a militia. They sort of tend to be kobold children, and they wear like bandanas. They have a bandana wrapped around their wrist or something like that, and that's how you know that they're a part of this part of the resistance. And but there's the town guard and all that, and they have to, they have to stay away from them and whatever else. But they're kind of so they're looking for these guys, part of the resistance. And when they find one, it's, oh, there's one, right? Do you know Chip? Chip's like the leader, this boy leader of this resistance. And what? Yeah, I know Chip. My name's Rex and all that sort of thing. Right, what we want to do here is blah blah blah, and then they do what the resistance wants them to do because they're quite simply not physically strong enough to take out these guards and smash that or whatever it may be. So they're using the party to do that. Now, the party only know that that's what they're meant to be doing because they've bumped into this character who's told them that, but they haven't said what you need to do is go to this place here, go through that dungeon, defeat everything in that dungeon, then you grab the key. Once you've got that key, then you can go over to this place and then blah, 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 blah. I haven't done that with them. They're talking to the resistance. The resistance is kind of saying, well, I think if we do this, this should probably happen. But you don't have to do that. You can go over there and see, and then they'll go to a different part of town and they'll find another member of the resistance. The other member of the resistance might have a completely different idea. Or what you want to do is no, don't destroy that place. No, rob it. What we want to do is rob it. Or what you want to try and do is take out the leader of that district and try and instill this leader of the district. Now, this leader of the district is actually a member of the resistance. So if we can get or whatever it may be, but there's no clear one direction. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me as I've been waffling on for a while. It's nice to speak to you all. I'm going to have to carry on doing some work. I shall be back probably later on or maybe tomorrow, and I hope you all have a good day, and I shall try and work out how to kill this, and we'll see you later on. Thank you.